We'd like to call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District for July the 23rd at 1 o'clock to order. The machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that 7 members are present. Councilman Charlie Burt and Nicole Williams are absent. The staff is here from the port. The President is here with his staff. This time, we will move to the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for the bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both the council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all, and for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do that which is right. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray that we will be spared from all harm and destruction this hurricane season. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Junior, are you leading from the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we have no executive session. We will move to item number 3, status report by the Executive Port Director.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, board members, and members of the audience. I am Sandy Sanders, Executive Director of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District. It follows as my Executive Director report for the reporting period of 10 through 23 July. During this reporting period, I met with members of the Illinois Boys Soybean Association, particularly with Scott Sigmund, who heads up the trade, transport, and infrastructure. This complements my previous meetings with the United States Soybean Export Council, attempting to source 10 million tons of soy for a potential client. As previously reported, this represents an increase of 16.5% of the total U.S. soybean export. So it would be very huge if we can land this for this client. We also had a subsequent meeting on regarding the East Bank levee. This was with President Cormier and Councilman Bartholomew. There were about 7 or 8 concerned citizens that lived on the East Bank that were present, and they were mostly relating to the committee about their frustrations trying to go direct with the CPRA to get the levees on the state's master plan. I think they were relieved by the fact that we were taking this seriously, and we're, as a united front, we were going to take it to the local, state, and federal governments to with a plan that would assist in alleviating the dismal levees on the East Bank, particularly in that 18-mile gap. We attended the second rail relocation project management committee meeting, which was at Walter Brooks's office. Present were President Cormier, myself, and John Pennison. We discussed the draft reports of alternative route analysis and marine vessel studies, as well as traffic and grade crossing delay analysis under existing conditions. They came up with 4 courses of action. We studied the cost benefit of each course of action, and this is to bring the rail through the Harvey Canal corridor. It will cross the Intercoast Canal, come the south side of the Naval Air Station, and then the rail will then come down Highway 23 as it does right now. There are other meetings that are being scheduled for public participation. The deadline, the timeline to have this complete is June of next year. A little bit of good news we don't often get. The port was notified by our insurance carrier McGriff, Siebel, and Williams that the port will be receiving a check or credit in the amount of $11,500. And this was due to having no claims during the 14-15 policy period and also renewing with the same insurance carrier. And this amount is 7.5% reduction in our premium costs. There are two items for consideration on today's agenda. The first one is an ordinance providing the authority to levy and collect the ad valorem tax of 3 mills. This is not an additional tax, but by state law, the millage must be readopted each year, and this ordinance accomplishes that purpose. And lastly, a resolution authorizing the port chairman to settle in the claims as recommended by the neutral parties with the BP due to the oil spill by the oil rig Deepwater Horizon. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report, subsequent to your comments from the board or from the audience.
Are there any comments or questions at this time? Ms. Salvant? Mr. Henry, Ms. Salvant first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
mentioned about the rail continuing down Highway 23. Could you tell me how will the communities through, namely the Ironton community, will be impacted by that rail?
Yes, ma'am. Those meetings will be coming. Right now, what we were looking at was specifically that route which comes through the Harvey Canal, crosses the Intercoastal Canal, and then joins with the present rail that's there now. But I believe you're talking about when they extend the rail from its present position.
That's correct.
That was not in this discussion, but that will be forthcoming, and they will be having community meetings on that. But this
Okay.
was solely the reroute around through the Harvey Canal and around the Naval Air Station.
Okay, when the extension come, I would like to be a part of
Absolutely.
those conversations.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. On the rail, because it's been over $200,000 a couple of years for a study on that. Has the study been finished?
What I responded to was the study itself. The Plaquemines Port, the Plaquemines Parish, Jefferson Parish, and the MPO office put up the matching funds. Senator from Louisiana, she got $1 million put aside for a environmental analysis. So it is being conducted, and it is the timeline is to complete that study June of next year.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we will move to item introduction 5 of ordinances and resolutions. Councilmember Thalman?
Have none.
Councilman Lapine?
I have 3 to offer on the behalf of Councilman Burt. An ordinance to amend and reinstate ordinance number 15-96, which ordinance authorized and directed Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District Executive Director Maynard J. Sanders to negotiate and enter into an option to lease agreement for letting the certain port property as described in Exhibit A on a long-term basis upon terms and conditions approved by the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, the council, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. A resolution authorizing Maynard Sandy Sanders as Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal to extend the agreement with the Arlington Ridge Group, LLC, for consulting and advisory services regarding inter-government representation at the state and federal levels and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And a third one, a resolution authorizing the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District Administration to exceed the $50,000 cap established by the amended contract for professional services with Dwyer, Cambria, and Suffren for legal services and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. I'm offering those on behalf of Charlie Byrd.
Councilman Juneau?
I haven't.
I had none. Councilman Salvant?
I have none.
I have none, sir.
That's it for the introductions and ordinances. We move to item 6A. Secretary Reed?
An ordinance providing authority for the levy and collection of the ad valorem tax of 3 mills on the property subject to taxation situated in the boundaries of the Plaquemines-Port Harbor and Terminal District, the district, as authorized by Chapter 8 of Title 34 of the Louisiana Revised Statutes of 1950, as amended, or other constitutional and statutory authority as applicable, to be dedicated and used for all lawful purposes by the district, included but not limited to the acquisition of immovable property in the construction of capital improvements, and otherwise providing with respect thereto.
At this time, I will offer and ask for a second, and then we will open this floor for public discussion or comments.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman Bartholomew. At this time, this is a renewal of the millage for the Port Harbor Terminal District, which was used for the property purchase. So at this time, we will ask for public comments, and then, as required, we will also have a public voice vote by the members of this body to either accept or reject this authority for the levy and collection of the tax. Are there any public comments at this time? Mr. Henry.
Could someone explain to the public why we need to renew this?
Would you, Mr. Sanders, address the issue?
By state law, it has to be brought up each year. It's not an addition to what has already been levied. It is a restatement of what is levied.
But you already have the money, don't you?
We have collected just the first year's collection, and it goes over 3 years.
Just a little.
5 years.
What this will do, let me interject here. What this does is allow the assessor to collect it. Since it's already on the books, it can go up to 5 years. The goal is to pay it off sooner, and with that, this will allow the assessor to collect it, which will be same tax that was on last year.
Explanation for the public, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on the ordinance?
Councilmember Bartholomew?
Yes.
Councilmember Black?
Yay.
Councilmember Lapine?
Yes.
Councilmember Juneau?
Yes.
Councilmember Roussel?
Yes.
Councilmember Salvant?
Yes.
Councilmember Edgecombe?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that Councilmembers Burt and Williams are absent.
And the ordinance is adopted 7-0. This time, we will move to item B.
A resolution approving Plaquemines-Port Harbor and Terminal Districts entering into an agreement with BP and its affiliated companies and corporations in oil spill by the oil rig Deepwater Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico on April 20th, 2010, USDC/EDLA, MDL number 2179, to settle the compromise claims, authorizing the chairman of the Plaquemines-Port Harbor and Terminal District to execute settlement documents on behalf of the Plaquemines-Port Harbor and Terminal District and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
This time, I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Councilmember Juneau. Any comments or discussion on this item? Any from the table? Mr. Warren.
Yes, Warren Lawrence, Myrtle Grove. Just one question was the dollar amount and what was the attorney's fair share of this amount? If it's for the public, I mean, it shows no amount that we settled on.
Yes, and I'll ask the executive director to answer those questions.
The dollar amount is $155,312.17.
And the second part of the question is the attorney's fees.
I am not sure what the attorney's fees are, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anybody in the port that knows what the attorney's fees are?
Excuse me if you'll allow me for 1 second, please. As far as I know, that any attorney's fees have to be awarded, that hadn't been decided. The court awards it, and it's in addition to, doesn't come out of this money. That's my understanding. I didn't handle the case, but I understand from our case that I am involved in, that the federal court has to, under the order, will determine attorney's fees for everything later on, but that money is not deducted from the check that we're going to, or the port's going to get, I should say,
Okay,
if that helps.
Because I noticed with other parishes, they showed a 25, with the other parishes in the paper, I saw they had 25% was attorney fees. And I just didn't know if this fell under the same thing like
That's-
St. Bernard or...
I don't know where you're getting that information, but as far as the federal auditor is concerned, the attorney's fees issues have been put aside in the global settlement to be determined by the court down the road for everybody. I'm not sure, Mr. Lawrence, where you're getting that information about 25%.
Well, just out the press. I mean, that's where we're getting it. Is the press is saying, like St. Bernard, not necessarily the dock board or the levy
Right,
board or anybody.
right.
The parish itself settled. And out of the settlement, the attorneys got 25% of that settlement. And I just don't know if this
I
was...
believe that's erroneous information.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lawrence, I have heard something similar to that in discussions with our attorneys, but we will clarify that item at the next meeting.
I have one question. Could anyone tell me how this amount would arrive at? I know the attorney's not here, but the public, they need to know, man. I mean, these guys getting paid, so the public need to know how this amount will arrive at.
Well, I'll ask the executive director to explain it.
Mr. Henry, it was decided that this money, there was an inordinate amount of money that was initially talked about. They had an independent source look at that and said that that was not feasible. They came up with the $155,000 and some change, and we, as a board and the staff, thought that was prudent, and that we decided to accept that as our claim.
So was there a formula used?
No,
To-
sir,
to
that
arrive
was
at
just
that amount?
offered, that was offered by the attorneys, and if you could shed some light on that, Mr. Lefferts.
In regard to this port settlement, I can't give you the absolute particulars, but I can tell you the formulas.
paying the
Excuse me.
lawyers for, man?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
The formulas, yes, there are models by the federal court and the Committee of Neutrals used to determine there's only a certain pot of money, period. So they have a model and they have formulas that are used by the economist, whatever, then the court appointed. What the actual numbers came out, the numbers came out regarding each one and how they went about each one of them. No one knows. I mean, honestly, it's not no one knows. That's the wrong way to say it. What it amounts to is you follow their formula, because if you don't, I don't want to get into our settlement or non-settlement, the parishes, but if you don't, then there's going to be no money there for you. So there were, yes, short answer is yes. There were formulas and models employed by all kind of economists from all over the United States. Now, the details of the ports, I can't tell you. Maybe Mr. Bickford can, but I can't.
So we hire lawyers and the public get no explanation on what occurred, but they get paid.
Mr. Henry, let me just give you my take on the situation. It's my understanding that Lauren Scott from UNO was hired from LSU, to do an economic model. It's my understanding that this amount represents the economic model attributed to any losses that were projected for the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District. We have no damaged property because the port had no property in the zone other than the acreage that was purchased afterwards. Therefore, this represents strictly an economic model, and how they apportioned it was based supposedly on this model that had something to do with taxes and revenues and tariffs that we collect. And it's my understanding that we did not have significant losses, that we actually had increases in the revenues because of the amount of work and effort that was taking place. And that's how they came up with a figure. It was an offer, and it was suggested that we accept the offer because we could not prove any economic loss.
Mr. Roussel is absolutely correct. That's what happened. Said it better than me.
But Mr. Russo, not the attorney, he represents the people. The attorney, I'm gonna tell y'all, when the council do get this settlement, be prepared, because I'm coming back to the same question. The people need to know. Not about me, it's about the people.
Right. Mr. Henry, we hope we have the opportunity to give you an explanation if we ever get a settlement. Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on item 6B? Any comments? Hearing none. Machine is open on item 6B. Machine is open. And the resolution is adopted 7-0. We'll move to item 7, new business. Is there any new business to come before the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District today? Hearing none. We'll move to item 8, where there are no suspensions of rules sought today. We will move to item 9, approval of the July 9th, 2015 minute meetings. Someone like to offer the minutes? Councilman Salvant, Councilman Edgecombe seconds. Any comments or discussion on the adoption of the minutes? Hearing none. Machine is open on the adoption of the July 9th, 2015 minutes. And the minutes are adopted 7-0. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District meeting. Councilman Bartholomew offers, and there's a second by Councilmember Edgecombe. Machine is open on the adjournment. And the meeting is adjourned at 1:24 p.m. Thank you. At this time, we will call the regularly scheduled meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council for July 23rd, 2015 to order. The machine is open for roll call. Let the record reflect that 7 members are present. Councilman Charlie Burt and Councilmember Williams are absent. Mr. Cormier, the parish president, is here with his directors. We have already had a pledge and a prayer, so we will move at this time to the status report, and we'll revert back to the executive session after we accommodate some of the people attending here for business today. This time we'll move to the status report by the parish president, Mr. Cormier.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a sunny day, and so I think I have a sunny report for you. I want to congratulate Director Wallace. I enjoyed my ride looking at the levees being freshly cut on the East Bank coming down. Of course, Director Giles did a super job finally obtaining the Pride back in Plaquemines Parish. That was something that the administration inherited. It was on the shipyards before we took office, and as a result, Director Giles really worked hard to get everything straightened out. And so we appreciate the people and their patience in waiting for us to get the ferry back online. Also, with the Recreation Department, Director Freeman is up in South Haven, Mississippi, right close to Memphis, Tennessee, as we speak. The Recreation Department really did an outstanding job. Some of the teams won 2 and 3 games up there, and with the girls' teams did an outstanding job as they lost in extra innings in 2 games. So congratulations to the recreation teams that we sent up there and the parents that supported them along the way. Keep in mind that the Recreation Department gave everything that they normally had. We had the playoffs, we had the trophies, and of course we went to all the teams went to South Haven with the tournament, and the parish is taking care of that as we speak. I also want to thank the council with the water rate fees that have gone through. We haven't had any negative comments to notice of any problems. Everybody seems to have accepted that, so I appreciate the council in taking that action. And of course, with the economy the way it's going and some of the agreements that we're making on the international scene, we'll probably have to look at other fees that the council will hopefully take action on as to the buildings and pavilions and such as that. The best news of the day, however, is going to come to you for the East Bank. We have Louisiana LNG, and Mr. Simon Bonini is going to give you a great update on the facility that will be located not far from here that will be a tremendous asset as far as education and jobs, and it just, I think it's going to open up a lot of things for Plaquemines Parish. So having said that, I'll call on Mr. Bonini and his group representation to come up with him and give you an update.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this time, that item is listed on your agenda as 7E, and we will take that at this time under the President's report.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I need to revert back to the President's status report when you finish.
we're not through yet. I would
Okay,
just make a
Mr.
note that this was the
All right.
same item under the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak this afternoon. You can tell I'm not from around these parts. I came in from Houston today. About 2 months ago, we acquired the project Louisiana LNG, which you can see up on the screen there, from a group that was headed by Jim Lindsay and Jaku Delap, who some of you in the room will be familiar with. They have now moved on, and we have taken that project over. Since we acquired it, we've been busy with Bechtel and the environmental consultants looking at reconfiguring it somewhat. We like the project. We think the site, the location is a fantastic place to be building this sort of facility. The river environment is great. The gas supply, everything is, we liked the project when we acquired it. We are now ready, having looked at it in a lot of detail with our engineers, to go public. So this project is already filed at FERC, so there's a whole set of reports in the federal system that are open to the public to review. We're going to be updating those next week, primarily the project description, and we wanted to use this opportunity to alert you and the local parishioners of those facts ahead of seeing it up on the web. So in most aspects, this project remains the same. It's the same location, it's the same technology. We're actually using the same main contractors in Bechtel, Lanier, and our environmental contractors. What we've done is doubled the capacity of the facility. So it still has 2 tanks. The tanks are a little bigger than the ones that are described in the project description at the moment, and we will be having to put in a new pipeline to supply the additional gas required. One of the key things that we've been working with is we are now in a joint development company with Cheniere. Cheniere LNG are the US's largest LNG company. They're one of the largest LNG companies in the world. They're worth over $20 billion. They're actually a major investor in the state of Louisiana. They have a massive facility going up in Cameron Parish down on the Sabine River. So they're no stranger to Louisiana. So in terms of our financial strength, our capability, and our markets for this product, the addition of Cheniere to this endeavor, I think, is fantastic news for the parish. It increases the chance of this project being constructed and on stream in 2020 hugely. So in terms of investment, we're talking about potentially up to $2 billion for this. A lot of economic activity. As I just said, it's going to take us until about 2020. There's just about a 2-year, 18-month permitting process that is led by FERC as the lead agencies, with state and local agencies falling in around that process. A lot of public consultation, as there are with any sort of major natural gas facilities. Key fact here, I think, is we're expecting that when we go into operation, we should be creating something like 100 direct jobs in this facility. They would be high-quality, high-paying process plant operations types jobs. During construction, and the construction period is expected to start sometime around 2017 when we've got our permits, we'd be looking at 1,200 people employed in the constructing the facility. So 100 direct jobs during operation, and then we estimate probably about 20 or so additional indirect jobs around security and services into the plant in the local community. Bechtel is our construction contractor. They are very committed to working with, as are we, with local communities to develop skill sets and employ people directly onto this, local people directly onto these projects. And they're very active, actually, in the west of the state, working with Lee College, which is in Baytown, Alvin Community College, Lamar University, on a range of different programs that include the National Centre for Construction Education and Research, with schools in after-school sessions, which I believe there's actually some incentive for students to attend those after-school sessions to get some additional training, right the way to supervisory workshop and sort of more advanced supervision for those people that are already skilled, but they're looking to up their skills on the job site. So to conclude, we are moving this major project forward. We think we have an exceptionally strong partnership that can realise this now. We are in fact in a federally managed process. And you will see, if you look at the FERC website or our website, that we're updating the project description. There are very clearly defined public sessions that are part of quite a rigid federal process. We, of course, will be following that through. Our message today, I think, to the parish is very much, you are our most important constituents, you're our neighbours, it's where we're going to be. These facilities typically are in operation for 40 years. We've got a 5-year period working with you to bring this to fruition, and the people in this room in the immediate vicinity are the most important people to us in terms of you having a direct dialogue with us so you can understand what we're trying to achieve, what we may need from you, and obviously critically what you expect of us, and how we need to be a good neighbour and a valued member of the parish. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bonini. Would you be entertaining some questions?
Yes, if there's some.
Or are there any questions from the table? Just a little explanation, perhaps. This is the same project. The property has already been acquired.
Yes. Yes.
Or is there any indication that you will need to acquire more property?
No, not for this at this point.
And as far as the capacity in tonnage, what
Yes.
is the output of the tonnage?
It's 6 million tons per annum. So in terms of, we expect to see one of those carriers maybe once every 4 or 5 days. So to get some sort of idea of ship movements. It's not that busy. This is a smaller, mid-scale, although it's a large sum of money, it's a mid-scale project in the LNG world.
And that's a 6 million ton a year.
6 million tons per annum, yeah.
And you've had cooperation from the local government, and do you need anything else for us to assist you with?
We may need some, inevitably, yes. We just need to define what those are. But in terms of really understanding how you move this sort of world-scale project forward, yes, we will have to have a very good understanding, I think, with local government and local people around things like construction activities.
Housing and so forth?
Housing, yeah. Amenities, water. There's obviously the key question of protection from inundation and flood protection, etc. So, yeah.
And have you had any interaction with the Plaquemines Port Harbor Terminal District?
Not fully, but a little bit. Yes, we need to improve that, and we have met with the Corps around the key question of the levies, because we're sitting within the levy system.
Yeah. Well, if there are no more questions, I want to thank you for bringing the project to us. We will do our best to try to get the port engaged in this project, as it seems to be moving along quite well. So without any further questions, we stand here to work with you and move this project forward.
Thank you. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, getting back to with the economy, also Director Terrio, we've instituted, in anticipation of some of the problems with this Iranian situation and the possibility of the market being flooded by oil, we're trying to do everything possible to be proactive. So we've cut back on vehicles, and we are continuing to look at that to make further cuts in the future, but we've cut 33 vehicles, and Director Terrio has also instituted flex time. And of course, I don't know what the public's hearing, but flex time will save job time. Okay, flex time will try to eliminate overtime. Overtime may create a loss of jobs, where flex time will create the opportunity to save jobs. So that's where we're headed as far as the administration is concerned on the economic outlook. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that you're being wise to rein in as much as you can at this time, especially since the price of oil dropped below 50 yesterday. And I think that you will have a challenge presenting a budget to us balanced at the low rate that we are looking at now. And at this time, any other comments or questions? Mr. Bartholomew, you wanted to revert to the President's.
I'd like to Director Giles and Mr. Director Wallace.
All right.
Wallace, quality, the range.
Mr. Bartholomew has taken a point of personal privilege at this time.
Well, give a little prop time. I'd like to at this time present a flag presentation to the Drainage Department concerning the East Bank, outstanding job that was done during the month of April when we had a severe rain and storm throughout the week and month. We didn't have any problem with flooding. We didn't have any problem with water because of the efforts of those gentlemen that were working under the supervision of Mr. Simpson. So I want to congratulate y'all on doing an outstanding job. Mr. Wallace. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Morgan?
Oh, man. John Sloan.
Myself and the other jobs and people on the East Bank, I'd like to present you with this certificate for the quick response of areas of concern, the problems that we had on the East Bank. They have been addressed expeditiously, and they have been really completed. The people and myself, and as I would like to thank you for your support in that endeavor. And we hope to continue to have that positive relationship and get the job done. Job well done so far.
So forth. Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bartholomew, for taking that point of personal privilege, and I think that we now have someone,
Mr. President?
Ms. Salomon.
Yeah. Mr. Cormier, that at listing that cutback, I commend you for taking action of cutting back and pulling some vehicles off the highway. Is there any way that my office or maybe the council could be afforded of a listing of all of the vehicles that was pulled?
Certainly, Ms. Brenda Sanderfield and I will try to provide you with that report as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Virgie Uncle, Mr. Russo, can I direct a question to Mr. Cormier?
Well, it's under President's report.
Yes.
He will entertain you.
You were speaking about fees. You mentioned fees. So in reference to fees, could you tell me something about the fees that has been implemented towards the use of the community center?
That's what we're working on presently, and the council will be looking at that probably in the next month or so as to what types of fees we'll be putting on. for the various buildings that we have to take care of that, along with, I think in the future, we're going to have to look at ferry fees, permit fees, you name it, and we're going to have to analyze every particular item that we have in order to try and get this budget in order and to save jobs. That's the whole thing that we're trying to do. We haven't let one job go at the present time. We've reduced the budget by over, the council in their wise decisions, they reduced it over $16 million. So that's about 40% of our budget. Now, next year, I don't know where else we can cut. So we've got to start taking the opportunity to look at things now before we get to that point.
So when these fees are being implemented, are you going to make sure that there's community meetings, public meetings about these?
Oh, yes, you know,
You sure about
absolutely. Yeah, the
Okay.
council will be, informing the public as to what actions they are going to take and how they want to go about it, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments under the president?
Michael Rodriguez, 143 Reynolds Lane. The drainage, wonderful. Water, wonderful. When we are going to get some lines on our highway from the Point LaHash Ferry coming down the road, and when are the kids going to get their swimming pool back over here? That's the only thing we have on this side for those kids. There's no McDonald's, no Burger Kings, no nothing, and y'all can't get that pool
We don't know yet.
fixed.
Let him answer the question. You got two questions. One is the
Okay.
stripe and one is the
Sorry.
pool.
Sorry.
Let him, go ahead.
As we stated, the economy is the problem right now. We've taken all capital improvement projects out. The council has, worked closely together in order to make sure that we can continue to operate within the budget framework that we have. In relationship to your pool, that again was some of the things that we inherited. That pool was not maintained properly. So as a result of that, now we have an exorbitant bill that's been required to fix the pool. I will say that the Director of Recreation that's in charge of the pool, we were looking at possibly $200,000 to $300,000 as far as the bill to get it in proper restoration. With his knowledge and with his contacts, we're looking at possibly getting it down to $35,000 to $40,000. But we are working on trying to get that in order, as we are gathered here today. And we appreciate your patience because it's just something that we inherited again. And maintenance is got to be a priority. If you don't maintain things properly, then naturally you save money for a short time, but then you kick the can down the road. And so the can was kicked down the road, and now we've got to pick it up. But we have economic difficulties in order to do that. So we are working on it. We hope to get that squared away as soon as possible.
Well, the pool's minor. The kids doesn't have a place to swim, but that road, y'all gonna wait till some kid gets killed when a car's flying down that highway at night or in the fog and somebody's walking. There is no lines on the road, and that needs to be looked at right away, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yeah,
Any
we've had
further-
two roads that have buckled, one in the Port Self area and also down at Fort Jackson was the latest one. And, you bring up a great point, and we'll try to address that as soon as we have the funds available.
Yes, Mr. Lawrence.
Yes, I was just one question on the rate increase. There was part of the rate increase and that required, I think it was a caveat or something that was added to it that said that we would look into, and I'm just looking for the status of the automatic taking of your bill out of your account instead of having to go to the, put a deposit down, put your money in. Nothing could be handled through the bank. And I thought it was Councilman Bartholomew put in a part of that ordinance was that they had to establish something with to have direct withdrawal, and I'm just looking for the status of it, where are we at?
Yes, we did make that amendment to make it automatic bill pay. Give us your checking account, we'll take your money.
No, I went there to get it done, and it's not done.
Mr. Giles and I talked about this yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And he's in the process of having that set up. Mr. Giles, if you want to give him the update.
We're working on it.
You give us your...
So in the past, what had happened was, when they tried to implement it, they had issues with, we got together, they had purchasing, legal, in the end of the water department, they got together.
Thank you, sir. You had to scream, just say it. And what happened was, Endeavor came to pass. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to get with Miss Angela right now. I spoke to a guy last week, I can't remember the name exactly who he is right now, but we're trying to see if he could come down, set up a date where he could come down maybe the next week or two, show us the benefits of that. Because in the past, what happened, they wanted the customers to pay, I think it was $2.50 per transaction. And so we was trying to see if we could get it set up where the customer wouldn't have to pay anything. Because if you have a water bill of $15 and then you had a $2.50 transaction fee, that seemed kind of enormous for such a small bill. So what we're trying to do right now is try to find someone who can work with us, and maybe we could set up the payment plan, and there wouldn't be any payment to the customers for as a fee.
Okay. And a comment on that is, it's done in St. Bernard, it's done in Jefferson, it's done, I don't know anything about the $2.50 transaction fee. Surgeon Water Board, we did it, I don't know that there's a $2.50 transaction fee. Energy does it on my energy bill, the telephone company does it.
Yes.
I don't know if there's these transaction fees necessary, but I was just looking for, when the public hears, we're going to do it.
Well,
And
like I
then-
shared with, like I'm saying, this is what I was told the last time they met, and that's why it wasn't implemented during the previous administration. That's why I'm trying to make sure that when we set it up, we don't have to worry about those transaction fees. I'm trying to avoid that.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to do, so we don't have to pay that. But from past discussion, from what I was told during the previous administration, when they sat down to discuss that, there was a fee that they wanted to put on the customers.
Okay. All right.
And I assure you, Mr. Lawrence, it was my amendment that asked for that automatic pay, and we are working through trying to get the implementation of the project so you can do that.
Just to the president, you mentioned the baseball team is going to New Haven, you say?
South Haven, Mississippi.
South Haven, Mississippi. And the budget having you, well, not you, but the council, $20,000 was left in the budget for reimbursement. We still honoring that? For teams that leave the parish and go play outside the parish?
The
Such as tournaments?
As I stated earlier, the Recreation Department, we have everything in order that we've had in the past as far as the financial status and their reports and what we're paying for. Is that's what you're referring to as far as hotel rooms and team fees and such?
Right, reimbursement fees. But anyhow, I just want to state that always states, we prioritize sports. We shouldn't do that. We should never prioritize. If you can't do it for one sport, you shouldn't be able to do it for none. And I'm always going to state that.
Thank you. Any further comments? If none, we will move to proclamations, which we have none. Bids and advertisements, I believe we have none. Beer and liquor license, Councilmember Bartholomew.
Yes, I have one. The American Legion is seeking a two-day special event beer permit for the fishing rodeo to be held on October 11 and 12, 2015, at the Point Lahatch Marina and Beshel Marina. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Lapine?
I have none.
I have none.
I have none. Councilman Salvat?
I have none.
I have none, sir.
We have one, and Councilmember Bartholomew offers it. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Edgecombe. Any comments or questions on the two-day event? Hearing none, machine is open. And the two-day permit is approved 7-0. At this time, I'd like to take any withdrawals or deferrals from the agenda. Councilmember Bartholomew?
Have none.
Councilmember Black?
I have one for Councilmember Burt. Just give me 1 second. I think it's 6A2. He's going to defer.
682. Councilmember Lapine?
I have none.
Councilman Juneau?
I have none.
I have none. Councilman Salvon?
You're asking for withdrawals?
Withdrawals or deferrals?
Yes, sir. I will be withdrawing 6E and 6F, and I will be deferring 6J.
Okay, Councilmember Edgecombe.
Deferring D and H.
At this time, we will defer item 6A2, D, withdraw E, F, and defer H and J. Are there any other withdrawals or deferrals? If not, we will move to item 4, building permits. Construction,
Would you pull 3 on the side, sir?
which one?
3.
Item 3 will be taken separately at Mr. Edgecombe's request.
Thank you.
4A1 Bison Energy Partners Incorporated, application number 2014-5722, dated September 12, 2014. Install pile clusters, drill the VUA SL20967, location number 1, and install wellhead protector, main pass area, revised block 32. Councilmember Bartholomew. 4A2 Bison Energy Partners, Inc., application number 2015-43, dated January 13, 2015. Install 4-inch flow line and 4-inch gas lift line, main pass area, block 32. Councilmember Bartholomew. 4A4 McMoran Oil and Gas, application number 2015-586, dated June 26, 2015. Plug and abandoned wells, remove all structures and flow lines, West Delta 24 Oil and Gas Field. Councilmember Williams. 4A5 IG Petroleum LLC, application number 2015-4614, dated July 7, 2015. Repair existing 10-inch pipeline, remove and replace if required, West Bay area. Councilmember Williams.
At this time, we'll entertain a motion to consider items 4A1, 2, 4, and 5 in globo. Is there offer? Councilmember Bartholomew, is there a second? Second by Councilmember Lapine. Any comments or discussion on those items? Hearing none, machine is open. And the construction permits are approved 6-0 to 1, with Councilmember Black abstaining. Move to item 3.
4A3 GK Mahalika, application number 2015-464, dated May 26, 2015. Drive pilings, install bulkhead and dock, 118 Camp Road, Empire Navigation Canal. Councilmember Edgecombe.
Yes, sir. I'll offer, I'll be present, not voting on it. I'm offering.
You going to offer?
Well, you offer. Take it.
I will offer it and ask for a second. Councilman Lapine seconds. Any comments or discussion on this item? Hearing none, machine is open. And the item is adopted 6-0 with Councilmember Edgecombe, Burt, and Nicole not voting. Move to item B.
Tyler Scott, third mobile home, application number 2015-461, 174 Edgecombe Lane, Narren. Councilmember Edgecombe.
Councilman Edgecombe.
Offer, Richard.
Councilman Edgecombe offers, is there a second?
I have a second.
Second by Councilmember Salvon. Any comments or discussion on item B? Hearing none, machine is open. And the item is adopted 7-0. Move to item C.
Tyler Scott, fourth mobile home, application number 2015-462, 184 Edgecombe Lane, Narren. Councilmember Edgecombe.
Offer, Richard.
Councilman Edgecombe offers, is there a second?
I have a second.
Second by Councilmember Salvon. Any comments or discussion on item C? Hearing none, machine is open. Machine is open. Vote your machine, members. And the item is adopted 7-0. This time we'll move to item 5, introductions of ordinances and resolutions. Councilman Batali.
Yes, I have one, a resolution increasing the maximum funding available per home under the Plaquemine Parish Housing Assistance Program, minor repair program, funded by the Office of Community Development through Community Development Block Grant, Hurricane Isaac funding, to $15,000 per home relative to the data received during the application process, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Black.
Yes, I have one for myself, which is a resolution assigning office space in the Belchase Government Complex on F. Edward Abear Boulevard, Building 100, Belchase, Louisiana, to the Parish Land Department, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. And I have one introduction for Councilmember Byrd, who is absent, a resolution authorizing and directing Parish President Amos J. Cormier, Jr. to take any and all action necessary to comply with and enforce the parish garbage, trash, and litter ordinances as complied in the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 11, Articles 1 and 2, to establish a litter abatement program, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all.
Councilmember Lapine.
I have none.
Councilman Juneau.
I have none.
I have one, a resolution authorizing the parish president and the chairman of this council to sign the receipt and release and any and all applicable settlement documents necessary and proper to compromise and settle Melvin J. Burmaster et al. Versus the Plaquemines Parish Government et al. 53-238 Division B, currently pending in the 25th JDC in and for the parish of Plaquemines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. That's all I have. Councilmember Savon.
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend and reenact Section 18-93, Article 5 of Chapter 18 of the Code of Ordinance, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2015 Road Maintenance Fund, Manpower Structure and Operating Expenditure Budget, Road Maintenance, Public Right-of-Way Department, Personal Services line items, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. An ordinance to amend the 2015 Operating Revenue Budget Donation Grand Bayou Community Center Pavilion and a 5-year capital improvement plan for the Grand Bayou Community Center Pavilion project, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Councilman Nathan.
I have none, sir.
At this time, then, we will move to item 6A1.
An ordinance of the Plaquemines Parish Council adopting taxes for the year 2015 to be levied on all lands and property subject to taxation and assessment in the Plaquemines Parish, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
And at this time, I'll offer an X for a second. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Juneau. This is an ordinance that will allow the assessor to assess the taxes on the rolls at the same rate as the previous year. Any comments or discussion? This a verbal vote? Where are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. The line 16, you should have July 21st, 2015.
Any further comments or discussion on the item? Hearing none, machine is open.
Councilmember Bartholomew?
Yes.
Councilmember Black? Councilmember Lapine?
Yay.
Councilmember Juneau?
Yay.
Councilmember Roussel?
Yes.
Councilmember Trufant Salvant?
Yes.
Councilmember Edgecombe?
Yes.
Let the record reflect that Councilmembers Burt and Williams are absent.
At this time, we'll move to item 6A3.
An ordinance amending and as amended readopting the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances, Article 1, Section 6-10B, prohibiting commercial and recreational airboats from trespassing on public and private property, and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Edgecombe.
Offer with changes, sir.
You all have a copy of the changes? They're coming to you. Councilman Edgecombe, you want to explain the changes?
Yes, sir. Everybody get a copy?
It's been offered by Councilman Edgecombe. Is there a second?
No, I'm good.
Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Lapine.
Yes, sir. The changes are going to be adding on line 35, including marinas, boat harbors, permitted seismograph work, and also emergency services.
That's excluded, correct?
Excluding.
Excluding.
Yes, sir.
Any further comments or discussion on the ordinance with the changes included? Anybody from the audience? No one?
Yeah, from the public standpoint, I know we went through this with the mud boats, and we just want to make sure, when they say public and private, it kind of eliminates the use of airboats completely. And I spoke to Councilman Edgecombe on it, and as clarification, I don't think the public knows it, that it's within certain areas, and I think that should be brought up where they will be restricted. It's just not everywhere. And if you just explain.
Well, we'll have the secretary read it if you like, Mr. Edgecombe.
It is within the federal and the parish levy system. That's anything going to the West Bank all the way down, unless excluded the areas that we mentioned in this legislation here.
So it's only excluding in those areas, between the
Right.
federal levy and the river levy
And the parish levy system.
and the parish levy
Yes.
system, which includes the East Bank.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
For clarification, the paragraph 1, which we're amending, puts the criteria, and it shall be unlawful for any commercial or recreational airboat within the boundaries of Plaquemines Parish to commit a trespass on private or public property without the express written permission of the landowner. It shall be unlawful for any commercial or recreational airboat within the boundaries of the parish to operate between 9:30 and 4:30 within 2 miles of any residence on private or public property. It shall be unlawful for any commercial or recreational airboat to operate at more than 5 miles per hour within 1/2 mile of any residence within the boundaries of the parish. And this takes to the next level of it shall be unlawful for any commercial or recreation within the federal levy system. So the set of criteria that's being amended is already in place.
Okay.
And this will exclude marinas, boat harbors, permitted seismograph work, and emergency services, as I understand it. Mr. Edgecombe can clarify that.
Okay.
Any further comments or discussion on the item? Being none, machine is open. And the item is adopted 7-0. Move to item 6A4.
An ordinance establishing permit fees and service charges for the production and editing of commercial motion pictures and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
All right, I'll repeat myself. It's 21. Towards the end of the sentence says, "and the approval of the Plaquemine Parish Council." And on number 38, it reads, "Permits shall contain the language to encourage the applicant to use local service and labor whenever possible." Those were the only changes that was made from the original draft that was given to me for approval. No other changes were ever made.
So Councilmember Bartholomew offers with those changes. Is there a second? I'll second. Is there any comments or discussion? Any comments or discussion on the ordinance? Hearing none, machine is open. And the ordinance is adopted 7-0. Move to item B.
An ordinance to amend the General Fund 2015 operating expenditure budget, swimming pools, day van, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Bartholomew.
I'd like to defer because there is no funding available at this time for the pool. I'm still waiting on funding.
Item B will be deferred till 2 weeks. We move to item C.
An ordinance to transfer funding from the REACH B2 Vegetative Ridge Marsh Creation Project from Fort Jackson to Venice. to the East Bank Back Levee Hurricane Protection Project and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Apply as well to this ordinance that because of lack of a funding appropriation, I would like to defer.
Councilmember Donnelly defers C. We will move to item G.
An ordinance to amend and as amended readopt ordinance number 99-287 and otherwise provide with respect thereto.
Councilmember Edgecombe.
Offer, sir.
Councilman Edgecombe offers. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second? The ordinance dies for a lack of a second.
Okay.
Move to item I.
A resolution approving of a Community Water Enrichment Fund grant from the Office of Community Services in the amount of $135,317 to directional bore and replace approximately 250 feet of 6-inch cast iron and asbestos cement pipe with 12-inch PE pipe under the canal crossing in the first phase of the project. The second phase will replace approximately 655 feet of 6-inch asbestos cement pipe with 8-inch C-900 PVC pipe. The project will begin at 450 F. Edward Hebert Boulevard and end at the complex's water tower located on the government complex grounds for a distance of approximately 900 feet.
Councilmember Black.
Offer.
Councilman Black offers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Lapine. Any comments or discussion? Comments or discussion?
Yes.
Councilman Salvon.
Mr. Black, could you tell me who's managing this grant and who actually brought it to the table?
Ms. Hilda Lott from Grants Department.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, sir, is that back in, I think it was 2007 and even as recent as 2011, the Diamond area was selected as a priority to replace the cast iron pipes in that area. And it's just being a continual practice that every grant that department seeks, it always ends up benefiting the northern end of the parish. And I'm just about, I think I need some answers. I think, Mr. Cormier, we need to have a conversation. We need to be in nothing against the benefits of the services that's going to be done at the complex. But we're going to have this lopsided government to just continue every time a grant comes in, it automatically goes to the northern end of the parish, and the other end, East Bank and everything else is placed secondary to, as a recipient. It just seems unfair. And my other question is, who's the engineer that will be attached to this grant?
I'll let the administration elaborate on those two questions, Mr. Salvant.
Yeah, Ms. Salvant, we'd be glad to try to answer that. And of course, again, we have an open invitation to meet with Ms. Lott to answer any questions you have. Off the top of my head, it seems to me that the reason why that those grants have not been accorded to other parts of the parish have to do with the V-zones and the flood maps, where they will not,
to replace
the different organizations will not appropriate the money for in various sections. Now, again, whether this applies to this particular area or not, this is going toward the government complex, and I will be glad to check on that. If your remarks hold water as far as what's been taking place in the past, as I've stated on so many occasions, this is a new administration, and I will be glad to look into every possible avenue to make sure that that does not occur again. Having said that, again, the next step would be to meet with those people that are responsible for the grants on a federal level and to see exactly what we need to do to get those grants available for all parts of the parish, not just for a particular part of the parish. So I do agree with you, and I'm looking forward to working with you on that. But I think, as you know, with some of the situations that we have, we're battling that thing with the flood maps as to getting the grants available because of restrictions in those areas. I could be
I
wrong.
don't think I need to stand over the grant department with a gun or anything and demand services. When the grants are coming in, I mean, I think they need to be fair about it. They need to be as open-minded, and they need to be fair. I shouldn't have to monitor that program, but for that matter, no one else should have to monitor that program. But every time I sit here, I sit over there prior to being elected, and every grant, and I'm literally saying it because it appears that way, that the grant department seek, that it benefited the northern end of the parish. And I mean, this has to stop. And to speak to the comment that this is a new administration, we need to stop being selective. A few minutes ago, when we was talking about the recreation department and the pool, you know, you was quick to make the statement that Mr. Freeman is making all of the adjustments. But here, you know, you took the liberty to say in the past, that was the sins of the past. Well, we need to address all of this, and we need to be fair in our comments.
Well, Ms. Salvin, as you know, I've gone out of my way to try and get a community center for Grand Bahia. And the state departments and so forth and so on have come in and stopped me repeatedly because of different permits. And I had the building, as we've stated in the past, that building was donated. We've gone out of our way to try and get that accomplished. And it's just a process that you have to go through. Reason why for being in that particular area. The same thing with Diamond Park. I'm working to try and make sure that we get those things that you deserve in that particular area. The Port Sulphur Library, as you know, we have that, it was in process, and then they came in with the V-zone. We're protesting, we're making appeals to everybody that's concerned with it to try and get that accomplished. So the only thing I can tell you is get those people out the way and I'll get the job done for you. But they're on top of me and they're limiting what we can do and the process we have to go through and getting those things done.
But you, as the leader of this parish, I'm expecting you to remove those barriers.
Well,
but
we
here we
worked with the
first
Corps
phase.
at the levee with Colonel Hanson, and I haven't had anybody really publicly thank me for that, but, you know, we did get that accomplished, and it took us some time, so that's one positive that I think we accomplished for the people in your particular district. And again, I'll be more than happy to work with you to solve these problems, to get any grant that we can get from the particular departments to give those grants.
What I would like you to do is to have Ms. Hilda to search some grants for the southern end of the parish.
I'll be
That's
more
what I
than
would like
happy
you
to do that, and
And if you
I'll
notice,
talk to her already about that.
this is only one phase. This is only one phase of this project that's about to take place in at the governmental complex. Okay, and that's replacing 250 feet of pipe. Then there's a second phase that's going to be replacing 655 feet of pipe. And Diamond just goes without. When it was already cited that there was a need. So I'm just pointing that out, and I'm done.
I'll be glad to check on that for you, and we'll do everything in our power to make sure that you get whatever you deserve in your district.
And again, in addition to that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, these grants come around about every 2 years. So let's make a note, the next time they come around, try to give East Banking and the southern end a fair share.
Well, we won't wait 2 years. We'll start on this as soon as we get back this afternoon or tomorrow morning.
So with that, in reference to the resolution, I appreciate that conversation, and I would just like to explain that this resolution of the approving the Community Water Enrichment Fund grant for the $135,000 of cast iron pipe and asbestos cement pipe services the government complex, which in turn services our entire community, our entire parish. The reason why I introduced this and I'm offering this resolution now is because the government complex just so happens to fall in District 2. So it's not, you know, doing grants based on a particular district. This is a grant that is going to help out the entire parish, not just one particular district. It just happens to fall in District 2. So with that, I'll call the question.
You might notice I voted for it.
It's been requested that we move back to item G for a motion to reconsider. Item G. Secretary read item G.
An ordinance to amend and as amended readopt ordinance number 99-287 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Is there a motion to reconsider at this time? Someone would like to offer? Councilman Edgecombe offers?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember
Black's fine.
Councilman Black. Machine is open on the motion to reconsider. And the item will be reconsidered. We move to item G for consideration at this time.
Yes, sir, please.
An ordinance to amend and as amended readopt ordinance number 99-287 and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
Councilman Edgecombe offers. Is there a second? I'll second. Second by Councilmember Lapine. Any comments or discussion on item G?
What it is, it's actually, I'm adding to an existing amendment to the harbors. No bilge or oil shall be pumped, emptied, or deposited into the parish boat harbors. And the part I'm adding is it's garbage cans, dumpsters, or any other areas on the boat harbor properties. And that's what I'm adding.
So who's going to enforce that? Mr. Edgecombe, who's going to do the
The sheriff's
enforcement?
office, the harbor masters. Once you create the ordinance, either or can.
So who's going to enforce it?
Yes.
Harbor Master? Is that the answer?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hopefully, we won't need a resolution to authorize somebody to enforce it.
But actually, it's become an issue in a couple harbors in my district, I know, in Ms. Williams' district, the same thing there. And actually, at the next meeting, if somebody wants, I even bring a couple of pictures. Pretty disgusting.
I would suggest that, I don't have the full benefit of it, but if there's not a criminal penalty of $50 or so, we might want to review that, allowing the sheriff's office to be able to write tickets, and that may put some more teeth into it. And you might want to consider that maybe for an introduction at a later date.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking through the ordinance at this time, and
Actually, I do plan on coming back to the table once the cameras are up and running, the surveillance cameras in all the harbors. That way, everything will fall into place.
I'm sorry, it's already here. Item section 6-74, penalty for violations. Any person violating section -48, section -6-58, 59, 60, and so forth, shall be found guilty of a misdemeanor, or upon conviction thereof shall be subject to a fine of not more than $500 or imprisonment. So it needs to be added, amended to add 49. You want to make the amendment?
Yes, sir, you can.
So you would amend section 6-74 to include section 649. Is there an offer? Councilman Edgecombe offers. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Salvon. Any comments or discussion? So now the penalty is enforceable with a fine up to 6 months or a $500 fine for dumping into the garbage cans. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one question, I'm confused, is that you're not allowed to dump oil or anything even to any of our canals. It's not just a harbor. You know, I mean, there's already, I'm assuming I know there's federal laws that don't allow it, and it's just confusing that it's just for the harbors that this is going to take place. I mean, it seems like whether it's somebody dumping oil down a drain when they empty their car, there's a law against it, and I don't understand why we're making something just for one location.
I think that it's more encompassing than that if you read the whole ordinance.
The public hadn't seen the whole
No,
ordinance.
if you go on the website and look up the ordinance, it'll tell you exactly what the whole ordinance does, and if we have some shortfalls, it can be amended to come back. Mr. Edgecombe is at this time choosing to amend it to the boat harbors, and if it's got some shortcomings, I'm sure that someone will be entertaining a motion on ordinance to expand that. Any further comments or discussion? We're on the amendment to add 6-49 under the penalty section. Machine is open. And the amendment's adopted, 7-0. Move to the amendment, the ordinance as amended. Is there any comments or discussion on the ordinance as amended? Hearing none, the machine is open on the ordinance as amended. Item G is adopted, 7-0. At this time, we will move to item 7A.
A resolution authorizing Amos Cormier, Parish President, to enter into a site access hold harmless agreement with CCI Port Nickel LLC, the site, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
We distribute this suspension. It's the same thing. It's the same. What this is the mirror image of what we did for the port last meeting. Excuse me? For the port last meeting, which this does is allow Mr. Cormier to enter into a hold harmless agreement because of the work that's going on by the ferry with the Corps of Engineers. As an emergency situation, we will be able to dock across the river and have to sign this agreement. So I seek a suspension. If there's no objection to the suspension, hearing none, rules stand suspended for this item, and you could read it once more, please.
A resolution authorizing Mr. Amos Cormier, Parish President, to enter into a site access hold harmless agreement with CCI Port Nickel LLC, the site, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto.
I'll offer and ask for a second. Second by Councilmember Juneau. Any comments or discussion on the item? Yes.
So the public should be aware there's going to be a temporary landing site.
Now, we don't know. It will be performing revetment rocking work, and that's a possibility requiring the movement.
Okay.
And this just authorizes the whole harmless agreement in case we do.
Okay.
Any further comments or discussion on the item? Hearing none, machine is open. And the item is adopted 7-0. This time we will move to item 7B.
Update and presentation by District 7.
Defer, please.
Councilman Salvant defers. At this time, 7C.
Discussion by Mr. Ronald Becknell regarding borrow pits. Councilmember Bartholomew.
Councilmember Bartholomew. He offers the discussion.
Good afternoon. Thanks for listening to me today.
Could you talk into the mic, please?
Yes. Well, actually, today, I'm not going to discuss too much about the borrow pits because it's pending an inspection that was done, and I won't know more until we get the results of that inspection. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'd like to just update some concerns I have about the pit location too close to my home. There's been a noticeable increase of mosquito population because there's a lot of standing water, other than the other facts I discussed last time with an increase of alligators and other rodents involved. I would also like to see or discuss with y'all, I don't know the proper procedure that either the council or the administration takes after the results of the inspection. Could someone here explain to me, let's say maybe they are in violation, other than the parish collecting fees and fines and permit fees, maybe due or not due, I'm not certain. Is there a possibility that till further review of this, is it possible that they can shut pits that are in violation to maybe shut them down until further review of what the inspector says? Does anyone, may I ask you, sir?
that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, refer to the legal department, he's going to give you an answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Becknell. Ms. Salvin has been kind enough to sponsor a new ordinance today that's going to allow the direct enforcement of the borrow pit ordinance so that we won't have to come back to the council and ask for resolutions every time we want to enforce it. So that's pending. So hopefully that'll be voted on in 2 weeks, and then we'll just be able to roll as soon as we discover evidence of a violation. The way it works right now, we have our engineer, Mr. Randy Osterlett, he goes out, he does his inspections, and he writes a report, and he gives it to the Department of Planning, Permits, Planning, and Zoning. And they look at it, they give a copy of it to the council, and then we review it, and if, there's probable cause to proceed, then we're going to proceed on it. And so once this ordinance gets passed, we're just going to, we'll send the inspectors out, they'll cite it, they'll probably send a letter as well to the violator, and the fines are $1,000 a day per violation. Okay, that's how that works, and you got 10 days to fix it, and if you don't fix it, then you lose your permit.
Well, that was my question. I
Yes,
wasn't
sir.
certain that was, because
Yes, sir.
I didn't read that part. Well, I think, like I said, I don't want to make too much comments until the final results of the inspection. I thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Any further comments on this item?
Barry Colligan, 31975 Highway 23, Buras. As stated at the last council meeting, Mr. Metcalf was supposed to provide me with some documents or information. I was requesting just to verify what I might already have in talking with him.
We're under
and-
the borough pits, the East Bank, under item 7C. You want to raise the objection? Councilman Levine raised the objection that is not relevant to the agenda because of Mr. Ronald Becknell's name being on it. If you would like to hold up until item D, then you might be able to come back under that item.
Thank you.
Any further discussion under item C? Hearing none, we'll move to item D.
Update on borrow pit monitoring, collections, and sales. Councilmember Roussel.
At this time, we'll take comments from the legal department on item D.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council, and again, I'd like to reiterate my thanks to Ms. Salvant for sponsoring that ordinance. That legislation is going to make things easier for everybody, and it's going to streamline our process. We continue to make progress with our inspections. I'm expecting a new report from Mr. Osterlett very soon with about 7 or 8 new pits that have been inspected. There probably will be some violations on those, but I don't want to comment on them in specificity for fear that it might mess up some of our enforcement efforts. It's an ongoing case, so we just can't talk about it. But it will be coming, and of course, we will share that report with the council as soon as we get it. The other thing, we have a task order which is going to probably go out early next week. At the end of the week at the latest, so that we can start looking at the monetary aspects of this in terms of the road use fee and that sort of thing. I met with Mr. Silverman and Mr. Surpass last week, and we had a very productive conversation. We're very happy with the direction we're going, and I think we're going to start moving in that direction. Again, we're continuing with our policy of trying to get the low-hanging fruit. So we're looking now, Mr. Randy's going into the permits department. He's making sure people filed their permit renewals. He's made sure they paid their fees, made sure, that we have all of these things being done. And if they're not being done, well, of course, that's a violation, and we're going to have to deal with it, and we're going to have to enforce on it. And so all of these things are coming. It's been a big rock to move, but it's slowly starting to move and build momentum, and I think we're going to have some satisfactory results very soon. The ordinance itself is very complicated. I've provided the council with a sort of a summary, which I hope helps everybody understand how we're interpreting the ordinance and how we're moving forward with it. And if y'all have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. But otherwise, we're just moving forward, and as soon as we get the authority to do so, we're gonna start sending out the notice of violation, and we're gonna start enforcing this in earnest. Thank you.
Thank you. We have further comments on item D, update on borrow pits, monitoring collections and sales. Anyone?
I know you said we're working on this, and I guess at the last meeting you wasn't here, and again, if you have made a different interpretation and you supplied the council with your interpretation on why we need another ordinance change to actually enforce this, when the current ordinance simply says is that if the violation is noted, that it is to be sent by the engineer to the Planning and Permit Department, and they would come in with a state of action. They would list their action that they were going to take and simply notify this council of the action they was going to take. Not to ask permission, but to notify the action that they were going to take. That's what I brought up last time, and I'm just questioning.
Yes, the language used in the ordinance is that they will advise the council of their plan of action. Advise. Advise means you give advice. It doesn't mean that you get to act. It means that you say, look, this is what we think you ought to do. Now, certainly, you could read it that way, and a liberal reading of it is not, beyond the pale. It's not unreasonable. I mean, this is one of those things where reasonable minds can differ. I mean, I'll grant you that, Mr. Lawrence, but I think that in order to preserve the integrity of any ultimate enforcement action and not to get into any trouble once we get into court with these things, which they probably will end up in the court, it's better to be safe than sorry on that.
Well, I waited 8.5 years, so I guess I can wait another 2 weeks.
2 weeks is probably not going to hurt. Yes, sir.
Any further comments or actions on the borrow pits?
Mr. Russo, in regards to how it's worded here on D, update on borrow pit monitoring, collection, and sales, I would think that once again, Mr. Lapine would object to me being up here since what I have is not about any of those items.
It's not? What are the items? And if they're not applicable to this item, I will put you on the agenda for the next meeting.
All right, sir.
So what are the items that you want to address?
Just the levy materials and Livideas Group and...
So specific to certain pits?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll be glad. Mr. Lapine, you want to object to him discussing that under this item?
Yeah.
Mr. Lapine objects. Is there any body that wants to overrule Mr. Lapine's objection?
I will.
Councilman Salvant moves to overrule Mr. Lapine's objection. The machine is open on that item. And a vote.
He'll vote to overrule my objection.
A vote yes is to overrule Mr. Lapine's objection, and a vote no is to uphold Mr. Lapine's objection. And item is 4-3, and the item fails 4-3. So we have 3 noes, 4 yeses. We need 5 to pass anything at this body. So if you give the secretary the discussion items that you wish to have at the next meeting, I will put it on the agenda.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in regards to the question that was brought up earlier.
Does it have anything to do with this item?
It doesn't have anything to do with this item.
It does not?
It's about a grant.
Then you need to go back to item President
For
status
discussion.
report. It's been moved to go back to the status report by the parish president. Yes, sir.
Yes, I would like to announce that we have, in reference to grants in Mr. Salvant's district, a $310,000 grant award that is being done on Caroline Avenue as well as Mullen Drive. So we do have grants that are being utilized in those particular areas. Thank you, Mr. President, Chairman.
Mr. President, I was speaking,
Two of them, two grants, yeah.
I was speaking generally, and I think they're Mr. Edgecombe district, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was legislation that he brought up. But I was speaking specifically of a cast iron grant that was authorized, and that was, they sought, the previous administration sought, deemed that the Diamond area was priority. So how did we get to this recent legislation? I don't know. That's what I was citing.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Bartholomew.
Yeah, we have two sections also for cast iron that have been over 15, 20 years, maybe longer than that, since its conception. After it was found that we was doing the, removing the cast iron, and let's see, I did 8, what's the name, did 12. So it's at least 20 years. Nothing has been done with that.
We would try to...
After awareness was brought up.
We will try to cast as many grants as possible.
Yes. Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, President Cormier, for bringing it back up. Reverend Tyrone Letter from downtown Phoenix. I got up because Councilman Black was talking about how they serve all the parish. And again, I understand what he's saying on a principle, but equity is saying that the whole way that government complex came about was at the behalf of these bank residents. It should have been the Pearl Hatch Courthouse. And then so we still have to remind ourselves when we toot our horn and lift this up, even though you wasn't here, that this government complex, the username government complex, and a lot of expense that should have been going to the Pearl Hatch Courthouse should have been there. And so while this might serve all the parish, the process and the equity issues should be always brought to the table, that equity wasn't used in this incident. And so while I understand that, and Councilman Salvant voted for it. If I was on the council, I probably would have voted yes too. But we still got to talk about how that building came about at the expense of East Bank residents. And here, you know, this grant that took place, you know, and I agree, Ms. Salvant, President Comey, we had to begin to look at this grant process. Because most time in the history of community development, it was always to get to those poor communities that couldn't afford it. There should be enough business people in Belshad should have been being able to pay for pipes to come into that area. So I'm saying, and again, so even the person writing the grant got to start thinking in terms of these grants were designed in the history of when it was developed by Congress to get to these poor communities and underserved communities who don't have the means to do it, to make sure that they get proper equipment to be updated in the 21st century. And I'm saying that when it comes down to that government complex and English turn that people on East Bank that was here when there was a code out there, that should have been went there. So this is a perfect example to say that the people who do the grant got to start looking at the way this stuff was designed. When the community agency was started, one of the purposes to look at grants that they get to community that's underserved. And I hope that our grant officers start doing that, and we won't be saying they'd be talking about giving something going to a complex when English turn still don't have these kind of pipes.
Yes, Warren Lawrence, again, on the grants, I think like we did the Recreation Department, maybe we ought to start a committee to help this grant administrator learn how to do the job, because it seems like they can't do the job unless there's a committee to help them designate where it's going to go. Thank you.
Any further comments on this item?
Barry Colligan again. Mr. Landry, last week I presented you with a couple of documents on FEMA grants and money spent, given to this parish. One was $600 million after Katrina. Another one was for $8.5 million, strictly designated to the governmental complex, which the parish didn't even own at the time of Hurricane Katrina, not even in the process. But anyway, I would still, hopefully one day, the legal department will be able to funnel through all this and find out where that $8.5 million that was specifically designated for the governmental complex went, along with that other $6-point-something million they took from down the road to that project.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Any further comments on this item? Hearing none, we'll move to item 8, approval of the minutes.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilmember Vitale.
I'd like to seek a suspension. Take up item that's not on the agenda today under
Council-
7,
F,
7F.
and state the item.
Yeah, some students from the Phoenix area would like to come and address the council.
Presentation by students from the Phoenix area. Any objection to adding that item under new business for discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the rule stands suspended. Proceed, Councilmember Vitale.
Yes, I'd like to give them that time to come up.
Good evening to the council, the Plaquemines Parish Council Board, and who is present today.
State that name.
State your name.
Oh, okay. My name is Larry Turner. I am from downtown Phoenix, and I work with the Zion Trust Cooperative Center, where I am the youth director there. You want to address yourself?
My name is Tyree Ankelid, and I am the youth leader at the Zion Childless Cooperative Center Summer Enrichment Program.
Good evening. I'm Julius Terrence, and I'm also a part of the Zion Traveler Cooperative Center.
And today we're here to address about our documentary we are shooting. And it's about after Hurricane Katrina. And what it's talking about is young kids' impact, what young kids went through during Hurricane Katrina. And we would like to invite y'all to come out and see our documentary, which will be August 28th at 7 p.m. at the Event Community Center. And I hope to see y'all there.
I am Terry, and I'm part of the Summer Enrichment Program, where we are connecting our kids to the environment. We have our own community garden where we pick fresh plants and bring to our elders. We cut their grass and we pressure wash their houses and other stuff.
Hi, I'm Julius, and also one day I would like to have a position here was Mr. John Bartholomew Jr. is sitting there as a councilman.
All right. Any further comments on this item? Hearing none, I'd like to move for a motion to approve the minutes of July 9th, 2015.
Offer.
Councilman Vitale offers. I'll second. Is there any comments or discussion on the approval of the minutes? Hearing none, the machine is open. On the minutes. The minutes are adopted 7-0. At this time, we will move back to item 1A1, executive session.
Plaquemines Parish Government versus All South Consulting Engineering, Inc., Donahue Favre Contractors, Inc., Seisler Thompson Brown Architects, LLC, ABS Insurance, QRS Insurance, Inc., and XYZ Insurance, Inc., 25th JDC, case number 62-307, Division B, Attorney Joel Lawfulholz.
This time, I'll move into executive session. Second by Councilmember Juneau. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, machine is open. Moving to executive session at 2:44 p.m.
I just want to...
I'd like to call the meeting back to order at 3:28, coming out of executive session with no final or binding action having been taken, but a very healthy discussion. At this time, I will move to come out of executive session and ask for a second.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bartholomew. Machine is open. And to come out of executive session is voted 7-0. At this time, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Offer.
Councilman Bartholomew moves. Is there a second? I'll second. And the machine is open on the adjournment. And the council stands adjourned at 3:29. Thank you.